Rajaram, Len, Hari, welcome to Sustainability Next Dialogues of this edition, and congratulations on your book, Climate Change: How It Impacts All. I think it's a very timely book. Uh, it it is a very different type of a book. It's an action-oriented book, and uh, it will be. I'm sure it will be received very well. The purpose of this conversation is to reach the concept of this book to a larger audience through our Sustainability Next network. So let me start with asking Rajaram, what is the purpose of this book? Why did you think this book was needed?
I have been traveling to India for several years, and also I've seen in Chicago area some of our public schools have no idea of the practical aspects of climate change and what they can do about it. Keep hearing all kinds of doomsday scenarios of this can happen, that can happen, the ice is melting in the Arctic and Antarctic. But what can people do, especially young people? So I said, this is something that we should bring it to the attention of high school and college students. And Len, having an experience of 30 plus years teaching students in the New York area, and my friend co-author Keith Olson, having taught in the Chicago schools for about 35 years, he said we should bring some practical exercises for the students to understand how the chemistry, physics, and biology, math they learn in school really relates to, they're all interrelated in nature. You can't find biology separately or physics separately in nature. But if you go to the environment, all these processes are at work: biological, physical, chemical, and real intricate processes are at work. Unless they understand that and see what they can do to impact the environment, impact their surroundings, their community, they will be lost. That is the reason he wrote this book and added a lot of exercises after each chapter.
That's good. That's really good. I did see those chapter sections. I think I started doing my own bit of answering them, but of course found it quite challenging. So, like, coming to Lynn, so Lynn, what's your contribution to the book?
Um, Thank you for having us. I come at it from the social studies side of things, and I guess when I got my master's degree, so my undergrad is anthropology sociology, and I have my teaching license in social studies in the United States, but my master's degree was an interesting environmental education program that was specifically seeking to bring social studies teachers, into that field because while, like Raj said, it's very, very important to understand the science, right? Like that's the baseline. Then you have to go and take action and, do something with that understanding. So in 2005, I uh, received, it was called the Indo-American Environmental Leadership Grant. It was a
Mhm.
Fulbright program. And I went and I was looking at the question of, how was sustainability being promoted in India through kind of three intersecting areas: nonprofits, government policies, programs, within the schools and otherwise, and then also business. So, that's kind of how I got my feet wet, in India. And then, it's just something that I've tried to teach. And, I think I bring that into the book. I've added, some of the exercises, um, some of the just, I guess, the idea that there are these systemic things we need to do, and that's where government and business and nonprofits that are promoting things, have the biggest levers. But there's also that individual role that everyone has to take in their own communities. So it's that's what I hope that we've gotten across in the book.
Yeah. So, thanks for that. uh, are the American schools already doing what you're suggested in the book, or is it for the global audience, or is it for India?
Um, well, that's interesting because in the United States, our education is run at the state level. So there's not, like a federal policy that governs all of our schools in all 50 states. Um, because of the Paris Climate Agreement, there's kind of a trickle down effect. So there are some kind of federal level reports and mandates that are promoting, the role of education in, mitigating climate change. So, but the problem is it just sort of depends how that's trickling into each state. So it's a hodgepodge, right now, New Jersey has a mandate that climate education has to be integrated into all subjects, all grade levels. Washington State's, kind of really moving in that direction. I think Los Angeles in California, New York, I'm on a few groups that are pushing it, but you run into politics. So it's a hodgepodge. So I mean, I think the book, it's needed here as well. I think it's needed,
Yeah. Okay.
many places.
Okay. So, Raj, for the listeners, what makes you competent to write this book and to come up with what you just so that you can give your background and things, experience.
Yes, yes. I started my life as a mining engineer, uh, working in one of the deepest gold mines in Karnataka state,
Oh, okay.
and then came here about 52 years ago. And then I was seeing that after the mining industry for 10 years, I moved into the environmental industry because I had an opportunity to come to Chicago and saw how I can use my skills in the mining
Mm,
industry to improve water management, waste management issues in different parts of the US. So, my first big project in Chicago when I came here in the early 80s was a deep tunnel project to take all the wastewater
mhm,
that cannot be handled by our treatment plants that was
mhm,
spilling over into our lake, which is a freshwater lake, Lake Michigan,
mhm,
and which about 4 or 5 million people depend on that for drinking water. Our wastewater was going there.
mhm,
So we came up with a very expensive project of tunnels underneath the city, 300 feet below. And that's where I used my skills. Then I saw that now there is so much environmental uh, concern that our mining industry is not taking care of. So
mhm.
my first book I wrote in 2005 was Sustainable Mining Practices. I
That's
talked to
interesting.
people from around the world,
Mhm,
Australia, US, UK, India, and said, how are we making mining sustainable? Mining is already a bad name that we just rip the earth and walk away.
yes.
How are we trying to be responsible citizens
Mhm,
mining our resources? So I found a lot of good practices all over the world, and I put it all together in my first book called Sustainable Mining Practices: A Global Perspective.
okay.
And
Have you
since then,
sent it to Indian companies like Vedanta and?
yeah, exactly. So what I did was I brought out an Indian edition of the book because it was
Mhm,
published by a UK publisher.
yeah.
So I brought out an Indian edition. They said, you have to put in some money up front. I said, I will do that.
Mm,
500 copies. I
mm,
published at 500 rupees.
okay.
And one of my friends in the mining industry distributed it to many, many, many mining companies and people in the
Mhm,
mining industry. Since
okay.
then, I've been
Very
involved
good.
in cleanup of hazardous waste sites in
Mhm,
India and in the US. So
mhm,
I've seen how irresponsible practices by industry, the chemical industry, uh, all kinds of industrial sectors, has been polluting our soil,
mhm.
groundwater, surface water, and
So
air.
is this your second book then?
Now, this is my sixth book because
Oh,
along the way, I said, let me put my mining waste management experience
yeah.
into books.
So
So,
quickly, if you can tell us about your other books in few
yeah,
lines, we can go ahead with your other
yeah.
questions.
So I wrote a book in 2011 called Landfill uh, uh, Gas
Hmm.
Management challenges and technologies and challenges. Landfill gas to energy,
Yeah, yeah,
technology
yeah,
and
yeah.
challenges. So there, I saw how landfill gas was being just let the methane going into the air and producing a lot of greenhouse gases. So for many, many years, I worked in India and here on capping these landfills so that the methane doesn't escape into the atmosphere. And we can use that methane usefully to produce power. So I put that in my second book. The third book I wrote on solid and liquid waste management,
Mm-hmm.
waste wealth. We consider
Waste.
this a waste,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
properly managed and recycled, it is wealth.
Yes, it is.
So, bringing in case studies from the US and India, I wrote the book Solid and Liquid Waste Management, Waste to Wealth. Then Lynn had brought in so many case studies from India when she was on a Fulbright scholarship. So I said, why don't we work together in writing a book called Ecology and Environment?
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to Terry Press in Delhi. They said they will publish it. So I wrote Ecology and Environment in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been doing a lot of charitable work in the US and India for the last 25 years. So I said, I have to share this. I was getting close to retirement. I was retiring. So I said, how do people who are retired use their time to serve their community through their time, talent, and treasure?
That's
So
really, really
again,
amazing.
yeah, Keith Olson was my co-author on that. And another
Mhm,
young lady who had a master's in philanthropy was in the nonprofit industry,
mhm,
nonprofit sector. So the three of us wrote this book called Golden Giving.
mhm.
Everything you
Wow.
need to know for leading a conscious, uh, for a conscious retirement.
Yes, yes.
So that is the fifth book. I self-published it through Amazon.
Mhm.
And then this book again, Lynn and I and Keith brainstormed it. We said, because we had wanted to put a lot of activities and exercises.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Terry Press said, no, that is not relevant for college kids, so we'll just take it out. They summarily
Mm,
took out all our activities and exercises.
mm,
And it was a huge disappointment to Lynn and Keith, who had
mm,
spent all their life's energies in putting these activities and exercises based on their he was teaching school kids. So we said, let's write a new book with
mhm.
climate change becoming a very important thing. Climate change and environment, put all those activities and exercises and more into this new book. And so, with the help of Hurry and Notion Press and your help, we got it published this year. And I hope, you know, even if I have to give it away free to schools, for them to know that this is something they have to be aware of, become responsible citizens. I'm willing to put my time, talent, and treasure again to
So
support this
instead of
work.
giving it away free,
Yeah,
whatever budget you think you
yeah,
have in mind, you can use it for marketing the book.
exactly, exactly.
So
So
that
I'm very
way,
good. Yeah,
that
yeah,
way it will, that way we can sell uh,
yeah.
much better.
And that's why
Uh,
we priced the book at 295 rupees because it will be affordable by most people.
yes,
We could have
yes,
come up with a hardbound edition, but I said, no, make it as low cost as possible to get the
yes.
material out to as many people as possible.
So again, huge congratulations, Raj,
Thank
Lane, and he's not here for bring this out. Uh, Hari, would you like to chip in a way? How did you find this book, and you think how can uh, maybe I'll ask more direct questions. A question. See, it is important to train the teachers to help students use this exercise,
you. Yes.
right? So how do you envisage that? Because I see that teachers are enablers for climate action uh, in schools and colleges. How can we get that going? Hari, your
Muted?
Hari,
Hurry, no.
Hari, could you get that question? Or one of you, Lynn, you can answer that.
Lynn?
Well, that
Yeah.
that's I can say a little bit. Yeah, that is something that I was just in a meeting yesterday here in New York. Like
Mhm,
we were just saying that it's just like a gaping omission.
mhm,
We New York State has I didn't realize this, but some of the people yesterday that I was meeting with said that we have the most ambitious targets to, reach net zero by 2050 of all the 50
Mhm.
states. So
Mhm.
there's a lot happening at kind of that technical level and kind of government, pushing and, promoting, switching to alternative energies and all of these incredible things, but they don't talk about the education aspect. And so one of
Mhm.
the gentlemen, he works in the sector of uh, are there people, let's say, trained to install solar panels and, do all these technologies? And he said there's a shortage right now. And if we're not educating and we're not, like you said, having teachers trained in
Yeah.
their preparatory programs, it's not going to happen. Like there has to be a very tight coordination with understanding the background of climate change and then setting up the career paths for students to actually choose these careers and understand the urgency of it. So yeah, I haven't been back to India. I mean, I'd love to go back and do another research, see where things are at now in 2022. But it's a huge problem, here in the United States. And again, we're one of the states that's even kind of mobilizing around it. Some states, I don't even know where this discussion is. So
So
um,
can you give say three solutions? How can we get teachers to become the missionaries in this?
Um, well, I think the thing we've said is the teacher training. So making it a mandate in
Mhm.
college preparatory. There already are mandated courses that
Mhm.
teachers have to take to get their licensing. So I would say that would be a good one for all the teachers that are onboarding. Um, then I think, and this is something that New York City started, I want to say maybe 2002, they
Mhm.
required every school to have what they call a sustainability coordinator,
Mhm.
um, which is really incredible. The problem is that they didn't really free those teachers up. So I have a full class load, but kind of on the side, I'm the sustainability coordinator. So that is something just from experience, 20 years of experience. If they could make that more of a full-time position,
Mhm.
then you would
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
someone in the schools who,
Yes.
is teaching the kids, getting everything in there, but also could teach their colleagues.
Mm.
And
Yes.
then a third thing that we're really trying to work on in New York is New Jersey has something like this, kind of getting a state body where
Mhm.
environmental educators from the nonprofit field, maybe these companies that need the career connections and might have internships, and then representatives from the Board of Education, like getting kind of a statewide consortium that's funded through government that can convene and just create this networking between all of these, stakeholders in this.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hari,
Mm-hmm.
are you up? Is your audio up?
I'm still trying. But again, what I see, I have gone to my local school here, Benedict, to
Mhm.
talk to them about minerals. They said they're
Mhm.
doing a course on minerals. So my about 20, 25 years, I've done projects in mining all around the US and India. So I took samples to them. How to
Mhm.
identify what is a gold ore. Now,
Mhm.
from where does copper come? Okay, what is the
Mhm.
ore? And how
Yep.
is that processed into, copper wires that we use? That's
Mhm.
essential for our livelihoods.
Mhm.
So this is the kind of basic things some of the kids don't have at the middle school and high school levels.
Mhm.
And when I have spoken to my nephews and nieces in Delhi, they just have no clue where
Mhm.
their power is coming or where all the materials that they depend on for their cell phone and others are coming. So these are things that we have to tell them. And teachers, what happens is, especially with the grading and the emphasis on grades and passing, that gets more teacher time than creative thinking by the teachers to say, kids, let's
Mhm.
get together, let's go on a field trip and
Mhm.
understand what we are seeing here in nature. Let's take
Mhm.
a walk in a park. Look at all The bees, what they are doing. What are the
Mhm.
birds, use of birds in our ecosystem? What are trees doing in our ecosystem? All these things we
Mhm.
have to have practical classes and give the teachers some autonomy and guidelines
Mhm.
on doing to teach these kids practical things instead of saying, this is the curriculum book I have to finish, and I'm going to grade you on this, and you get an A, B, C like that. And then the kids all to lose focus on even seeing when they walk into school, what is there, they don't know. So I had
Mhm.
the fortune of working with the chairman of Ashok Leyland in Chennai.
Mhm.
And Ashok Leyland, they have a school for their employees in Hosur
Yeah.
area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I connected with the principal there.
Mhm.
And within 6 months, she
Mhm.
converted her school into the greenest school.
Oh wow.
Took
Okay.
ideas from us and said, how do I make, my food waste into compost? How do I make
Mhm.
my gardens green? How do I capture
Mhm.
my rainwater? We just gave them some ideas. And the teacher was the prime mover, the principal of their school was
Yes.
the prime
Yes.
mover. She told the teachers. And this is how they got their school to become a green school within 6 months.
Oh
So it
wow.
needs a passionate person at the top
Yes.
and who conveys the message to the teachers that
Yes.
unless you quiz your kids on
Mhm.
what is happening in nature, what they have learned applies to nature and
Mhm.
their community,
Mhm.
then we are doing a disservice to the
Yes.
student.
Yes.
So
So
that's the
it,
message. I
yeah.
would like to make sure the teachers in India get, teachers all over the world get, that they
Yes.
are bringing out the future generation, and they have to really,
Yes.
send this message to the students that they are teaching.
Yes. That's a wonderful point. Uh, Raj, can we get a case study done on this Ashok Leyland school, which we can publish as an example?
Absolutely. Lynn has.
I can come back and do it. I can research it.
No, no.
So
You're saying not
I
an
will.
elaborate, not an elaborate case study, just a
Yeah,
uh, learnings and things like that, about 1,000 words.
Mhm.
That
absolutely. Lynn, that's our next plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Based on
Uh,
your work with the state schools and the bodies that you're working with,
mhm,
how
uh-huh.
can we make this? What are the difficulties in making it happen? So let's write an article,
Yeah.
okay,
Yes. Yes.
on
yeah.
what are the pitfalls, what are the difficulties teachers face these days. Like
Hmm.
you said, you're a sustainability coordinator and you are
Hmm.
asked to do that on your own time.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
people have their own lives also other than teaching.
Yes.
So you should be given 100% of your time to coordinate with other teachers.
mhm,
Yes.
So
So how
write
can
something like that and let us get it done in the next
mhm,
2 months. Is that okay?
mhm.
2 months? That's too long.
Sit
For 1,000 words.
30 days. How about 30 days? Len,
Okay.
you
Okay.
give me the outline, I'll write it, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So
Good.
Hari, you're up. I
Trouble is,
think.
you're talking to a Ben who works on a 12-hour and 24-hour deadline for a
Yeah.
thousand words.
Yes. 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 Uh,
And Ben, the trouble is, you are talking to academicians for
yeah.
whom every sentence and phrase and word,
Hmm.
is weighed some, 20 times before they sort of craft it into their piece,
Yes. Yes.
right?
I can.
No,
I
but
can.
this is for practical, thing that
Yeah.
can be done here and now. That's what Ben is saying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I will get going. You have really put a challenge for me, Ben.
Yeah.
I will
Sure.
work with
I,
Lynn, get
I
some
like. I
ideas
like
from her.
giving challenges.
Yeah.
So Hari, come
And
in and tell how uh, this book can be
yeah,
used uh, in a more practical way in Indian education system.
You asking
absolutely.
me, Ben?
Yeah, Hari, yes.
Well, I'll put
I
it
will
like this to you.
I will get that
I
work.
mean, you have heard both Raj and Lynn speaking extensively on its relevance.
Hmm.
I will phrase what they said or rephrase to say that, there are many books on environment, on sustainability, on ecology, or at least the last, say, 30 years, from about 1995, clearly, we have had, the dialogue, the
Yeah.
debate on sustainability first moving into academia and then into industry by about 2010 or so. And therefore, there's
Mhm.
been lots of books. I mean, you can go back to the earlier fathers of environment and ecology, Paul Hawken, Aldo
Mm,
Leopold in the 1920s, many others
mm,
like that who have been writing, of
mm,
course, Rachel Carson in
mm.
1964. But what has always bothered me is they all write wonderful books, extremely thought provoking, but they do not tell me if I'm 25, 30 as to what I can do to
Ah,
connect myself to what is happening around me. What this book does, and it's not a textbook to my mind, what this book does is essentially it helps readers to have those lifeless words, concepts, theoretical dimensions of any textbook spring to life
yeah.
with those wonderful case exercises that Lynn and Keith sort of curated for this book. And
Hmm.
as he told you, it was supposed to appear in an earlier book, and then they decided that they will create another with this. The other dimension is this. You asked about it, what you can do about it in India. See, like you said, you have yourself read some of those case exercises and activities and so on. And you can see that, it'll engage minds, I would reckon, of people who are in class 11 and 12 and then into any graduate program. You need not necessarily be a technical graduate, an engineer or architect, or you can be a bachelor's in sciences, in humanities, in art, if you ask me, and in commerce, for instance, and yet be able to understand. For example, one of those things that he talks about, I don't know who among the two of them, Keith and Lynn, who sort of wrote that out. You take an 800 kg Maruti car and you work out what its carbon emission is.
Mm,
Very
mm.
simple as exercise. If you ask me, a class 10 boy can do this. As a matter of fact, I've been using some of these exercises, some few of them, in classes that I hold for working professionals, under the Foundation Green program. But the other thing is, like she said, you see, this, like Lynn was saying, the role of education in mitigating climate change is not often discussed. You know,
Yes.
she used the word hodgepodge. For an
Yes.
academician, it's a very strong phrase. But across the United States, she's saying it. And do I have to tell you, Ben and Raj, who has a good understanding of
Yeah.
education in India, how bad it is here?
Yeah.
Now, also the architecture of education, higher education in this country, polytechnic institute, vocational educational institutions, then you have these general colleges, of arts and sciences and humanities, and then you have, these engineering colleges. Between all of them, we have about 55,000 institutions in India,
Yeah.
producing about 5 million graduates of various kinds, including
Yeah.
polytechnic diploma engineering holders. They all need exercises of this kind. When I met the deputy chief minister in Karnataka, and I urged him to read this book, you know how ministers can be; they have no time for all of these things. But then he said, "Look, if you are telling me that this can be of use for my students in polytechnic institutes, and there are 40 to 50,000 engineers, diploma
Yeah.
engineers,
Mm,
under the Department of Technical Education in the government of Karnataka alone, there are about 400 plus institutes and about 45 to 50,000 engineers who graduate there every year, right? So he said, look, there is a deal of relevance for my students here in Karnataka. And that is how it came about that we got him to write the foreword for this book.
yes.
So to my mind, relevance, if you ask me, go to Gujarat, you have about 5,000 first grade colleges. You have
Yeah.
about
So,
300 polytechnic
Hari, can
institutes.
I stop you a bit there? Uh, uh, we can elaborate little later. I think a larger question, which I was been meaning to ask, is that the way the exercises, the way it is listed, and the way the education system is now, it will take ages for them to do make a change. So, Raj, you're a technical person. How can we use technology how can we use technology to leapfrog in sustainability education?
Use simple videos. For example, when I was asked to do the India Water Portal in
Yeah.
2005 by Sam Pitroda, one of
Oh,
my
okay.
neighbors here in Chicago. So I said, I don't want this to be a portal to be accessed only by professionals, PhD students, or graduate students. I want this for the common person. So I worked with Argyem in Bangalore
Yeah.
and several other groups and I know in India. And I said, I want simple 30-second, 3-minute, 4-minute videos.
Okay.
How anybody can do rainwater harvesting,
Yes.
how to set it up,
Yes.
how our water bodies get polluted.
Hmm.
A rural person wants to understand why he is drinking dirty water from his pond.
Yes.
We have a video in India Water Portal which
Okay.
shows that, okay, he washes his cattle right there. Their sewage is not being treated or sent somewhere else, it's being sent to the pond.
Yeah.
So when you do these things, you will drink dirty water and get sick.
Yeah.
So keep them separately. Keep your cow dung separately from where the water rushes out in a rain and
Yeah.
pollutes your water body, your drinking water. So these are simple videos we can get, and we have the technology to do it and people to do it. And if I find some people in India interested in doing it, I'm like Hari knows I'm in the analog era. But if young people I can give my ideas how to make these videos relevant, how to
Okay.
make a rainforest walk, 5-minute rainforest walk,
Okay.
to see all the things happening at a rainforest. I can work with my friend in Bangalore,
Okay.
Malali Gowda, to
Hmm.
do that video. So I need somebody to take the lead locally in India. I will provide some technical people, idea people to get it done.
So the first exercise for you is please do a 2-minute video on why anybody should buy this book.
Then you start.
No, no, do a 2-minute video
Okay.
and use that for marketing
Yeah.
purpose. So that way, it'll have a uh, it'll have a greater reach.
Yeah. I have
We
one.
did one, as a matter of fact. There is one. Raj, can you talk about the little video that you did some time ago?
Yeah, I have that 3-minute video.
Yeah.
Excuse me, which I'll send to you, Ben, and it needs a little bit more polish.
Okay.
And I'm asking Lynn to do that now. This using a summer break. She will put a 3-minute, 2-minute video with
Hmm.
Hari's help. So we will get that done also in the next couple of weeks.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
That's good. I'd like to keep this as a tight 30-minute video because nobody likes a long
Yeah.
uh, video these days. So I'll wrap it up. Uh, but do stay on. I have an event coming up which I can discuss it with you a bit. So thank you, Raj. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Hari, for this amazing interview, uh, amazing discussion, rather. And congratulations again on the book. And let's hope thousands of schools pick it up and bring about the much needed change. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank
Ben.
you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.